Greetings, programs. This is Wretch. Welcome back to Vampire the Masquerade, Reckoning of New York. And in the last episode, guys, Kali and Paddy went on a little bit of a serpent hunt for Sansaricq, a member of the Ministry, who I knew back in the day as the followers of Set, who may have some information as to where exactly Raynor disappeared to. We also got to run into D'Angelo again, and he even seemed more on edge and willing to flee the city than he was at the beginning of the game. And when a Nosferatu is scared, like visibly showing his fright and wanting to get out of a situation, you know that's a big red flag. It's like an unspoken tradition. But it is night 3, a little leper. Let's do this. Paddy and I come to a stop in front of the perfectly serviceable vehicle. We should... Now, I already know the crap you're going to dish out. No splitting up, Kali. I can't fully trust you yet, Kali. But listen, it's late as hell already, so we gotta hustle. If we both go chasing Sansaricq in the same spot, all we're going to catch is sunrise. We gotta divide and conquer. I concur. See, I knew you did... Hold up. What do you mean you concur? A subtle smirk plays at the corner of his mouth before he reins it in. I agreed that we have too much ground to cover, and since you kept your word and didn't flee last time, I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt once more. I just stare at him, confused as hell before erupting into laughter. Don't recognize you, man. Where's stick-up-the-ass Paddy? Who's this loose cannon they replaced him with? Paddy twitches briefly, his smile disappearing without a trace and fingers crawling toward the ring don't slip my notice. He bounces back swiftly, though, and tucks his hands in his pockets. Let's part ways for now. Do you have a preferred destination? Ooh. Okay, dread game. Paddy's driving like he's gunning for his personal best. I'm not complaining, but he's being strangely careless. I mean, this is Mr. Proper we're talking about. What could possibly go wrong? So that's a detour, and then we've got Chasing Ellie, Morningside Park, and Church. Well, they are called the Ministry. But this detour is fairly... I want to figure out what's going on with Paddy, because he's definitely being influenced by something, or something's affecting him. I actually love rushing things. I'm pretty slick at handling stuff on the fly. Sure, things can go off the rails, but I've usually got a quick fix up my sleeve. Shite. But when someone else is calling the shots and things go south, it absolutely drives me up the wall. Hang on, we need to stop. That's always when accidents happen and mistakes are made. The kind of mess I have no fix for. The kind I really can't afford right now. Oh, for the love of... So, really, I'm more disappointed than surprised when suddenly there's a soft bang, and Paddy's perfectly serviceable vehicle starts wobbling and swerves hard to the right, sparks flying out from under... a flat tire. No shit, Sherlock. I grin at him mockingly. Not so perfectly serviceable now, is it? Outrage flashes in his eyes. It's not the car's fault someone left nails on the godforsaken street. Besides, changing tires is a trivial matter, as... Yeah, so do you have a spare, or what? Paddy shoots me a disappointing look. Of course I have a spare. It's only sensible when... Right, of course. Mr. Perfection. Thank you, O paragon of good sense. Sure. I don't know why I even asked. Aight, so you do what you gotta do. I'm gonna go stretch my legs a bit. Hold on, I don't think... Oh, but I do. See ya. And I'm off before he can start truly protesting. I know he won't leave his precious baby all broken down and vulnerable on the side of the road just to chase after me. Plus, he knows I'm not gonna bail. There's little point to it now anyway. Now then, anything interesting to do around here? As it turns out, there is. Although I suppose that depends on your idea of interesting. there's some guy standing in front of a small crowd, yelling and flailing his arms around. A performance? Sure, I'll bite. I creep closer to take a look. Save us all. All you gotta do is strategize, prep, and tackle our current reality with clear objectives in mind. And for that, we have to look to the sky to survive. Wait, is he high or something? Technology is the future, plain and simple. Humans roaming the land, that's old news. That's all in the past already. As Aaron Fletcher put it, Jesus Christ, it's one of the Fletcher sycophants. No wonder every single one of his listeners looks like they're about to barf. Fletcher is not just a visionary, he's the embodiment of innovation. Where others see obstacles, he sees opportunities. Our society is starved for role models, for genuine heroes. The man's got a plan for tomorrow, for what we, as the collective, are about to face. It's hilarious how his zeal is having entirely the opposite effect, given how quickly the crowd is thinning. Fucking sheeple. You'll be digging shitholes with your bare hands when he launches us, the Enlightened, into a new era. Oh, fuck yeah. Let's roll out the red carpet for an era of failed projects and a spectacular lack of common sense. Well, who said that? I didn't really mean to say it out loud, but I'm kinda glad I did. I cross my arms, tilt my head confidently, and look the weirdo straight in the eye. There's almost nobody left, so I guess it must have been me. He scoffs dismissively. A female, of course. How fitting. Purple hair, too. Daddy didn't love you enough? Ooh, straight to daddy issues, huh? You know, big guy, my old man is quite generous. I could probably convince him to give you a hearty embrace. This whole thing you've got going on here, it's practically screaming for a big old chunk of Papa's attention. The words escape my mouth even before I manage to process them. A whisper of laughter travels throughout the crowd, and the maniac grows red in the face. Fitting color, I'd say. Listen here, you little bitch. I came here to enlighten the blind masses to the genius of Aaron Fletcher, not to be disrespected by a... You didn't want to be disrespected, but you're out here, all hot and sweaty, eagerly blowing Fletcher's trumpet? My guy, you're a real knob, if you know what I mean. Somebody in the crowd howls with laughter. All the blood in Fletcher's groupie rushes to his cheeks as he wheezes with outrage, eyes and veins bulging from his face. Shut the fuck up, you bitch! Wow, how super original. What's next? I'll kill you? I'll kill you! All brawn, no brains. I roll my eyes theatrically as he starts to elbow his way through the laughing crowd. Look, it has been a pleasure, but I'm sort of on the clock here. I'll fucking kill you! Asshole. Somebody should teach him a lesson. Ooh, feral whispers. Daunt. Now we are in a giant crowd. It is not time to be using our... That is a masquerade breach waiting to happen, so we'll let him come. He lunges at me, but it's perfectly clear he has no idea what he's doing. He's counting on being far bigger and bulkier than me. I take a few small steps back and dodge the flying fists, which looks like they're in slow-mo to me. The guy could be punching through molasses for all I care. When he comes into reach, and because he really got on my fucking nerves, I lift my leg, bend slightly backward, and deliver a perfect, crushing kick right to his crotch. The wacko lets out a whimper of agony and immediately crumples onto the ground like a puppet whose strings have been cut. He coils into the fetal position, wallowing in pain. When I straighten up, the crowd is quiet, but they unanimously take a step back as I give them an indifferent look. No pun intended, but it was definitely nuts. The wacko just wheezes and I calmly walk away. The crowd disperses, leaving him writhing on the agony in the ground, or on the ground. Oh, that was a productive half hour. Wonder if Paddy's done with the tire. When I finally return to the nearly perfectly serviceable vehicle, Paddy is so visibly annoyed that he's one straw away from stomping his foot. I know he's too well-mannered for that, but he crosses his arms and scowls at me. How nice of you to finally join me again. We don't want to make fun of him. We'll tease him, though. Aw, I bet you use that line on every girl you're forced to tail. He rolls his eyes, but I catch sight of a tiny, tiny smirk before he turns away. Come on, let's go. Clues await. I hope. I think that went pretty well, all things considered. So Morningside Park or St. Patrick's Episcopalian Church. Now, this may be the church that we've seen from previous New York games. I don't think they were allied with the followers of Set at all. And I know they're called the Ministry now, but I'll always say followers of Set. Let's go to Morningside Park. It's unconventional. I hop out of Paddy's car at the edge of Morningside Park, and he speeds off towards the church to search for signs of Sansaricq. From this vantage point, there's nothing particularly poetic about the park. The absurd number of stairs scattered about could inspire some lines, though. But at the end of the night, a park is just a park, which really makes me wonder what the hell a group of radical kindred would be doing here in the first place. I don't know much about Sansaricq, just the scraps I've picked up. He's the most powerful snake in New York, keeping the Ministry in a real iron grip. An aggressive, territorial asshole. No wonder Reynard had a sort of twisted respect for the guy. As for their dealings, I can't say much either, only that they were infrequent, costly, and involved stuff way beyond our regular inventory. Yeah, right. And I'm just the logistics gal, my ass. No matter. I've got to comb through this entire park anyway, tree by tree, snowflake by snowflake. The search quickly turns into a boring slog. I miss the high-stakes cons I used to run with Reynard. I miss the sketchy deals in those creepy, deserted parking lots. Hell, even blowing sand out of my nose at festivals was more thrilling than this endless sea of snow and trees. And guess what? Sansaricq is definitely not here. No trace of him whatsoever. I'm about to throw in the towel and drag my ass back to the rendezvous point when the wind brings the faint sound of a distant conversation to my ears. I turn around and quietly follow the noise. I spot them just a minute later, kindred snooping around, clearly on the lookout for something. And I really, really want to know what they're talking about. Unseen passage and waltz right over. I guess we can't use that. It needs two. I'll be softer than a snowflake. The snow crunches underfoot, a sure sign it's cold out. Not that I can feel it, but you pick up the clues over time. However, my footsteps just will not do. I concentrate, dampening the sounds around me, engulfing them in a blanket of silence, making my gait quieter than a whisper. Then I move. The snow gives under my weight, but noiselessly. I move cautiously, sticking close to the trees. Soon, I'm close enough to overhear snippets of the conversation. Damn, I was really hoping we'd catch Sansaricq here. Bet the asshole turned into a snake and holed up somewhere underground. Can the serpents even do that? Fuck if I know. No sign of that raven trickster either. Think we should wrap it up? Let's give it another sweep before we head back. If we show up empty-handed, she'll probably throw us into the Hudson. More like she'll strip us for parts. Not the subject I would... Wait. Who's there? They both snap their heads at me and I instinctively step back. Whether they see me or not, they lunge forward. All I can do is flee into the labyrinth of trees, hoping that they haven't tagged me with some kind of tracker. It feels like forever, just me and the wind howling, but I finally shake them off. I get into the meeting spot just as Paddy pulls over. I throw myself into the car, slamming the door behind me. Go! Just fucking drive! He slams on the gas. Within seconds, we're tearing through the streets, the city a blur. What happened? Did you run into trouble? Just a deadly chase through the fucking park. Ran into some kindred trying to track down Sansaricq, spitting some crazy shit about the Hudson. They were after a raven trickster, too. Holy shit, you think they were talking about me? I finish rambling and look at Paddy. He's frowning, lips deathly tight, one hand white-knuckling the steering wheel, the other nervously spinning the dice ring. He's so lost in thought he doesn't respond, and I snap, a little surprised by my own irritation. Hey, did you even hear me? Yes. Yeah. Sorry. I don't know. I'm just glad they didn't catch you. He's so spaced out, I bet his thoughts aren't even on this hemisphere. I want to keep pestering him, but I realize he's driving with a purpose, and I have no idea where we're heading. Wait, what the hell's happening? Where are we going? His shoulders finally drop a bit. He loosens his grip on the steering wheel. I found some recently deceased hunters in the crypt of St. Patrick's. One of them had this note on it. I squint at the horrible handwriting. Some wild numbers, coordinates most likely. Then a description. Black, yellow eyes, highly aggressive, exercise extreme caution. Well, it certainly screams Sansaricq, but what's the deal with these coordinates? They point to North Border Island. It's in the East River. It's a fairly bleak spot, which fits the ministry to a T now that I think about it. That is where we're headed. Good. Just get me the fuck out of here. Well, we're a little bit with the hunger. Or is that the beast's eye opening? Oh, brother. It might not seem like much, but with all the loose ends strung around us, we finally snagged a solid lead. North Brother Island is not the liveliest spot, but hey, it's totally the ministry style if you ask me. I used to be one of those kids who was always running around and stirring up some shit after school. Shocking, I know. One of the favorite pastimes of my gang of little rascals was exploring the ruins of the Old Hill Hospital at night. Well, exploring might be a bit of a stretch. We never actually got inside, just dared each other to stare into the windows for as long as we could. Usually, I was the last girl standing. But let me tell you, those hours after dusk in the fall, when every whisper of the wind, every rustle of the trees was multiplied by 100, they were torture. Now, I kind of miss those days. So when Paddy and I hit the wrecked pier of North Brother Island and see the derelict buildings nearby, I almost squeal with delight. Almost. The ambience is pretty much ruined by the shiny new RIBs moored along the pier. Some of them have clearly been used in the last few hours, judging by the mud and melted snow on the seats. And just to make sure we're on the same page, what exactly is your connection to Sansaricq? Be honest. I know if we're quiet, that definitely gives something away. Be fairly honest. Let's just be careful. Just work stuff. He was one of Raynard's clients. You've said that before, yeah. But how does that involve you? I nervously chew on my lower lip. I really don't want to spill all the beans. I've grown used to Paddy, and I don't want him to see me in even a worse light. Or, God's forbid, dislike me. I decide on a tiny little lie by omission. He used to place orders through Raynard. I was the one who actually got the stuff, and then Raynard passed it along to him. I never even met the guy. I see. That is consistent with what you've said before about them having a relatively good relationship. How do you plan to exploit that? I snort, half pissed that he knows me too damn well, half amused by that good relationship crap, since all it means is they didn't try to actively kill each other. I'm just about to break it down for him when suddenly we're cut off by gunshots. And they're getting closer. We duck down and observe as some guys come tearing onto the pier, screaming his lungs out in terror. He's running backwards, tripping over every bump while desperately trying to shoot at something in the trees, unaware that his clip has been empty for a while. He's decked out head to toe in urban warfare gear, reminiscent of the hunters I had the pleasure of meeting a few times lately. He hasn't noticed us yet, blinded by his delirious fear. It's a perfect moment to strike. Feed from the startled hunter. Oh, that would be nice, but if he's being chased, that might not be the best course. Let's let Paddy take care of him. I hold back, realizing that I'm actually curious how Paddy handles situations like that. I catch his eye and jerk my head toward the screamer. Paddy gives me a confused look, then sizes up his target. I blink, and the next thing I know, he's already on the guy, fangs deep in his neck. Honestly, I didn't expect stiff upper lip Paddy to tear into the hunter with such ferocity, but who am I to judge? We like to pretend we're above mortals, but in the end, we're all just slaves to our hunger. All good? Paddy carefully sets the body down and wipes his crimson mouth clean, grimacing in disgust. Yes, forgive me, but that was quite revolting. I laugh a little. All is forgiven. If those were Sansarick's ministers who pushed this poor bastard to the edge, I'm not exactly eager to meet him myself. Paddy nods, looking at the lifeless body. He makes no move to hide it, so I don't bother either. We share a quick glance before sneaking cautiously through the thicket toward the ruins looming over the bare trees. We tread carefully through the bushes, mindful of the crunch of the snow underfoot, but let's be honest, the distant gunshots would have covered the sound of a stampede. Although the shooting had died down in the last couple of minutes, and replaced by blood-curdling screams of torment. We stumble upon several corpses, and surprisingly, a decapitated skeleton with scraps of decomposing flesh still clinging to it. The murder of crows feasting on the scene couldn't care less. To them, carrion's carrion. It gives us both some pause. Those fuckers. The screams are almost drowning out the gunfire now, suggesting that the ministers might be getting the upper hand. Better them than the hunters. I just hope they don't mistake us for enemies and decide we deserve a similar fate. And that's the only reason I didn't feed from that that guy running to the pier, was because I figured that something was still chasing them. Great, Callie. You got yourself right in the middle of a fucking war zone. The whole city feels like a battlefield these nights. It's just our luck that we arrived right in time for the hostilities here. So what's the plan? We could try sneaking past, hoping the hunters are too busy with the serpents to notice us, or... Look, over there. There's a spot under that collapsed floor where we could hide out and wait for this to blow over. Paddy cocks his head, pondering, absent-mindedly twirling his ring. Not in a panic this time, but more like using it to focus. Huh. Finally, he drops his hands and looks at me calmly. I say we go with whatever your daredevil instinct recommends. You sure you didn't hit your head on our way here? Positive. Score some points with Sansaricq? Yeah, that could be best. Well, let's kick some ass then. Maybe that'll score us a few points with Sansaricq right off the bat. Paddy nods and follows me as I kick down the door and enter the ruined building, every sense heightened as my vitae surges in anticipation of a fight. The floor is a jigsaw of body parts. You could probably piece together a few whole bodies from the mess if you were so inclined, but I left my glue gun in the RV. I walk over them carelessly, only half noticing the sickening crunch of bone under my boots. As we creep through the building, Paddy suddenly stops and flashes 3 fingers at me. I press myself against the wall, tuning in on the hunters in the next room. Paddy slyly kicks a pebble to mimic footsteps. Fooled, 2 hunters burst out, shotguns at the ready, but with just a flick of his wrist, Paddy has one hunter gunning down the other. Confusion washes over the hunter's face just before I rip his throat out. The last one starts freaking out, blasting his assault rifle everywhere, trying to shoot us through the walls. I duck behind the doorframe and sneak a quick glance. He's alone, terrified, and the crows cawing outside the window are not helping him one bit. But let's be real. In this horror show, we are the monsters. Feral whispers nevermore. Wow. Double trouble style. Without looking at each other, Paddy and I lunge forward. He goes high, aiming for the gun, while I dive low and slam an elbow into the hunter's solar plexus, dropping him to his knees, then flatten him with a right hook to the temple. Before his trigger finger can even twitch, he's already lying on the ground, disarmed and confused. We both move in again, but this time our rhythm is off. Our syncopated moves clash as we both reach for the hunter's head with the same neck-snapping plan, and then the head just pops right off. The lips keep moving for a few seconds, as if murmuring a prayer. We drop it immediately, looking at each other in embarrassment, and take a step back from the headless corpse. The clamor we caused inevitably draws more trouble. As we turn to leave, a bunch of hunters fleets in, weapons at the ready. We go back to back and switch places, throwing them off balance. Before we can lunge, we hear a loud ting, and the hunter in front of the door looks like he's about to lose his head. And that's exactly what happens. His head is severed by a cut so clean that his body stands dumbly for a moment before crumpling onto the ground. Behind stands a group of serpents, all decked out in leathers and gold. Scary as fuck. For a split second, the room goes deathly quiet, and then all hell breaks loose. Paddy and I hardly need to intervene. The hunters and serpents clash with each other, gunshots echo, cries fill the air, and blood flows freely. It's all over in less than a minute, and the kindred, predictably, emerge victorious, leaving one last victim unscathed. The silence that falls is so oppressive that it almost buzzes in my ear. I start to think I've gone deaf, but I see Paddy checking his ears, and I relax a little, relieved that I'm not the only one so overwhelmed. The serpents don't move. They don't speak. They only look at us judgmentally, calculatingly. In this heavy silence, filled with only the scent of blood, the sound of approaching footsteps echoes like thunder. The man who enters the room is barely my height, but he carries himself with the grandeur of a king, the ruthless ruler of his domain. Sansaricq, the most powerful snake himself. From the silence of his movements, it is instantly clear that his thunderous entrance was all for show. An intimidation, a warning. Magnanimously, he was giving the assailants a chance to flee in disgrace. Or letting them scatter for a more interesting hunt, more likely. Hell, I'm not sure why Paddy and I didn't just bolt. The last remaining hunter tries frantically to crawl away, but he collapses under Sansarick's steel-capped boot. That's when I realize why the serpent is walking so oddly. He's dragging a dead hunter impaled on the enormous claws protruding from his fingers. The body slides to the ground with a hollow thud. A kindred who seems to be his child? A vampire created through the embrace, the child is the progeny of their sire. This term is often used derogatorily, indicating experience, or inexperience. Second in command hands him a clean handkerchief, which he uses to wipe the blood off his hands, and then he promptly flings it onto the corpse. Standing over the whimpering hunter, he surveys the mortal with sheer disdain, then tilts his head to make direct eye contact with me. Given that you have been smeared with the blood of the cattle, am I right to assume that you are not part of their pathetic assault? There's something to him, this youth pastor intensity, that prompts me to answer immediately, and recklessly. Please, I've had enough bullshit from their crew already. No, we're siblings in arms here. Let's us not get ahead of ourselves. I toss him a sour glance, make me look uncool in front of the battle pastor. Sansarick's gaze locks on me, unblinking, his posture rigid as a cobra's. His stare is so intense it almost makes me sweat. If I could sweat, that is. and if I weren't so damn used to pressure. I try to appear relaxed and confident when he lets out a short, sharp whistle. Instantly, 2 of his serpents lift the last hunter, propping his limp body into a standing position. But Sansaricq doesn't spare him a glance. His eyes are fixed on me. He's been a real annoyance, this one. Quite the rogue, wouldn't you say? Of course you would. Why don't you teach him a lesson? It's clearly not a real question, and the only acceptable response is a dutiful, "Yes, sir." Oh, man. The first taste is always free. Lingering kiss, love what you hate. I'm gonna go ahead and say no. Fuck that. I'm not playing his game. Who the hell does he think he is bossing me around? Oh god, Callie. So I plant my feet wide, cross my arms, and glare right back into those cold, snake-like eyes of his. Sansaricq clicks his tongue disapprovingly. My rebellion doesn't earn me any points. In the ministry, it's all about order and hierarchy. I begin to wonder what kind of punishments awaits me when Paddy steps in front of me, arm pushing me gently behind him, and clears his throat. I'll deal with him. With everyone watching, Paddy bends down and locks eyes with the hunter, mouthing words I can't discern from where I'm standing. No, don't! The hunter's mouth opens wide like he's trying to swallow the whole building, and he starts laughing. It begins with a twitchy giggle, then quickly turns into uncontrollable howls. He drops to the floor, convulsing, foam bubbling at the mouth. His eyes are bulging and teary, his hands tearing at his own face, digging into his skin. That is dementation. He stops only when Sansaricq comes over to Paddy and puts a hand on his shoulder. Now, that's quite enough, my boy. We don't want him completely broken, do we? Paddy hesitates for a while under that subtle command, but eventually backs off, ignoring my dumbfounded gaze while the hunter struggles to breathe. Sansarick's serpent eyes follow these feeble movements unblinkingly. He approaches the hunter slowly, lazily, and then with both hands, lifts the mortal off the ground by the shoulders. I watch from the sidelines as Sansarick's bearing changes completely. Gone is the relentless intensity, the danger, the zeal. His eyes look soft and sweet when he locks them with the hunter's and murmurs something into his ears, gently as if soothing a frightened animal. I watch with increasing surprise as the hunter melts into Sansarick's arms and embraces him, sobbing into the crook of his neck and clawing desperately at his back as if trying to draw him closer. It looks intimate, reverent, an encounter with the most beloved divine. Sansaricq carefully pulls away, ignoring the hunter's clinging hands, and fishes out a hand grenade from the hunter's gear. Return to your patron. Make him see the error of his ways. The hunter immediately gets up, feet unsteady, and limps away, through the door and into the cold darkness. His gait is awkward and clearly uncomfortable because he doesn't, not even for a second, avert his worshipful eyes from Sansarick's face. Come. He struts toward the pier, his entourage obediently in tow. And of course, we're dragged along too, thanks to an overly persistent serpent who thinks shoving us is somehow necessary. It's not like we have a choice, right? Okay, guys, well, we found Sansaricq, but or better yet, maybe Sansaricq found us. Don't know which is worse. But we will go ahead and call it an episode and see what happens in the next video. If y'all liked it, please leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, that'd be a big help, and we'll see you next time. Later days, everyone.